It is me. Thank you for joining. I'm Alyson Shelton. Thank you for joining me for Where I'm From, number 30 with Lisa. She should be here in just a minute. What are you reading? I finished True Biz. I really loved it. I'm now reading Run Towards the Danger by Sarah Polly. I am really enjoying, and I have always been a fan of her outspokenness. And
I did
hey,
it! Yay!
yay! Sometimes the best thing to do is just start over, and just like take the pressure off of. So, for those of you who don't know, we tried once before and it didn't work, and now it did work, and we're here. Um,
Okay.
you may want to tilt, yeah, so I can see more of you. Yes, so I can see more of you.
Yeah, I can't see myself. Keep saying go live, and I keep saying yes, I'm going live. But that's at
Just
the top of my door, so I know where I am.
okay, okay, good. I'm glad that we did it. I feel like sometimes the technology does not want to cooperate, in my experience.
I was trying to get on from my computer, and that did not like
No,
it there.
no, you have to be on your phone. It is.
Oh, I asked you before how to do this. Yeah, let's see if I can get that.
That's okay.
All
Um,
right.
yeah, we're here now. So, did you want to say anything, or do you want to? Hi, Rosanna. Do you want to read it? It's like our little own Zoom room here.
Okay, well, I can. One of the things I wanted to say is, with, I don't know who. Oh, it was Adrian, um, Andrea Firth who
Hmm.
prompt with me, and
Hmm.
and I just had to laugh because I was a middle school teacher for 23 years.
I
Um,
saw that in your
and
bio.
yeah, and I used to have my kids write poems like this all the time, and so it was a little, deja vu there for me to see this film. So I really liked that. I was quite pleased with it.
So, Lisa, before you begin, can you hear me? Because you're breaking up a little bit, and I'm
I,
wondering if you're in the best spot.
I can hear you, but
Rosanna, is she breaking up for you? Lisa, is Lisa breaking up for you, Rosanna, or do you hear her? Is it just me? Rosanna is being put on the spot.
yeah. Oh,
um,
okay, we're
okay.
having difficulties here, huh? I'm gonna
Yeah.
try my
But
headphones.
okay. And Rosanna's not saying anything, so maybe it's totally fine. But it's funny you say that, Lisa, because I have a teenager and I went into his eight. Oh, she says you're breaking up for her too. So
Okay. Maybe this will be better with the
it is better.
headphones. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Um, I went into his eighth grade and we did this poem with the eighth graders. And it was so, of course, all the parents, when they saw the poems, were very emotional.
Of course. Yeah, yeah. You get really because seventh and eighth graders, which I spent my, whole career teaching, they love doing this, and it's a wonderful thing. So I enjoyed writing this. So
So, had you ever done it before when you were teaching it, or is this the first time you've done it?
I have done it. Yeah, I always wrote my own. I wouldn't have written quite the same kind of
Mm-hmm.
poem with my students. This is pretty, it reveals a lot more of life than I might have revealed with them. And I
Mm-hmm.
always had to be careful to make sure that I didn't make things too poetic because
Mm-hmm.
I don't mean poetic, but
Like, you don't want it to be too
complicated.
intimidating.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so it made it more simple so that they could follow how to do it. But so it was fun to write one of these just for myself.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
That's cool. I love that backstory. I think it also speaks to the power of the poem, right? It's
Oh
accessible to
yeah.
everyone, and you may do it differently considering I really gave that time and thought when I was writing mine, like considering what part of my life I'm going to talk about, who the audience is, who, that these are all questions we ask ourselves as writers.
Yeah, yeah. And when I shared this with a group of writers, they were kind of surprised because um, I got into, I revealed some of the hard things in my life from this. So it wasn't just, all the really the fun things, as you might say. So it was good. It was a really good experience.
Oh, good. Well, I'm excited to hear it. Hi, Ronit. Hi, Rosanna. Hi, Kat. You're all back. Thank you.
Oh my gosh, it's just
We appreciate your sticking with us.
you're brave to do this. It's great. Yeah, I was excited. I'm the 30th one. Yay.
I know that's a good number, right? Every time
Yeah,
I hit
yeah.
a 5 or a 10, I'm like, look at this random idea I had one
It's
day.
it's such a wonderful thing to do, to share poetry and ask people to write. It's great. So should I start reading or
Go for
do you want?
it.
Okay. I am
Yes.
from I am from the back seats of rusty old cars, from Crisco and Jello. I am from a lawn stretching to farm fields behind, bee-laden and humid, smelling of wind and black loam. I am from the promise of wild roses, tiny pink, and lilac honey clusters, offering their scent after snow-laden winter. I am from watching family home movies. Our bodies flicker across the screen, growing and changing in each reel. And I am from work, always work, housework and yard work and laundry and dishes, doing what must be done. From Melba Laureen and William Frank, I'm from their will to survive and my longing for something I couldn't name, sneaking books under the covers at night. From quit your belly aching and frogs wish they had wings, from do something useful and because you're the oldest. I'm from the preacher saying all rise to lead us in Methodist hymns, from hard pews through hour-long sermons. I'm from Texas to Colorado to Illinois, from my mother's southern drawl and my father orphaned of family, my mother's famous red cake and lasagna, weekly cornbread and pinto beans. From my parents' mahogany dressers loaded on Mayflower moving vans, traveling with us across the country to each new home that, please Lord, might be the one. Dressers that watch over me still as words spool from my pen. Thank you.
Thank you. That was such a strong sense of place. I really felt all those places, and it was cool when you named them because I've lived in Colorado and Illinois, and my husband's
Uh,
from Texas.
oh,
Um,
okay.
so I have an idea of those places, and I didn't really know about lilacs till I moved to Colorado, or wasn't aware of their sort of magical power after a long winter.
Yeah.
And they do signal hope and a new
Yes.
start. And I loved that. That really, I mean, I loved it all, but that like, I love it when these poems like remind me of myself because, well, I'm me. I'm listening to them. So I am struck by really every poem has some piece that I personally relate to. And I think it speaks to, I've said this many times, but that the more specific we get, the more universal our work becomes, which
That's
feels
true.
counterintuitive when we first start writing. Um, but it's so true.
It really, that's the wonder of this, this prompt with, this scent, talking about scents and
Mm-hmm.
what was growing or, food, things that people say. My mother's sayings were very Texan, and I've never heard anybody else talk, say those things. But everybody has something that they remember that was repeated
Mm-hmm.
over and over again. And I think you're right. It does bring it to the universal. So that's really wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great exercise that speaks to the power of that. And someone
Yes,
called these like a micro memoir, and they really are because
they are.
this little piece of us. And I, I lost the thread. I,
That was what was really interesting. Like I said, when someone responded to what I wrote, and I thought, oh, this is because I am working on a memoir, and I thought I got about everything in there in this poem that I'm dealing with, kind of dealing with in my own memoir. So they really are memoir in a way. So
Yes, and thank you, because that reminds me of what I was going to say about the prompt. Part of what I love about it is because, like you said, it uses the sense and the words and the all the different senses and our experiences of those moments. And because I think sometimes I lean on certain things more than others in my writing. I'm more comfortable thinking about what was said than what I smelled or experienced. And so I liked and I feel like this pressure because so many writers talk about, oh, smells transport me. Smells are so powerful. And I'm like, I can't remember smells.
well,
I
yeah,
liked,
that's interesting because to me, I write more about what's visual. I
Mhm.
describe what I see, and so I'm always trying to get in the idea of scent, and and being a poet. I never have used dialogue very much. So that, of course, I didn't have to use dialogue in here. Although I had my mother's sayings, which my mother had a lot of sayings. She still has. My mom's 95, so it's
Wow.
still going. Yeah, it's still going strong.
Bravo.
Yeah, I should have. I couldn't have gotten her on this. She couldn't have done that. But she does do Facebook, and
FaceTime.
she texts and stuff. So it's amazing at 95. But she told me she was going to start a new journal, which is early farm memories. So
No, wow.
that's going to be good to have some of that kind of thing from her. So. But it is good to have. One of the things a prompt like this does is it pushes you like, okay,
Mhm.
what would I smell, what taste is a hard one to get in, of course, because you want to say I ate something, which that's what the
Mhm.
kids always wanted to do, but you don't have to do it that way. So it was good. So anyway.
We were also struck when we did it with the teenagers. One of my parent friends was on here doing her own poem, how positive they were for the most part.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, the teenagers, which is interesting because I personally think teenagers get a bad rap and how they aren't very positive. Um, and we were joking, like, give them 30 years,
That's funny.
let them reflect back. I wonder what
Yeah.
their impressions will be. I think there will be more thoughts about the world. Those aren't
Yes.
really filtering in yet. There was no mention of COVID, which was interesting to me.
Really? In the
Yeah.
middle of the, yeah, seen, and I didn't teach kids during COVID, so it's interesting. But, I had experience, like I was teaching during when 9/11 happened and, things that were not positive in our country, elections and things. And often kids, I found, they wanted to look at something else. Like I remember the day 9/11 happened and I was teaching and I said, by the time I got to the end of the school day, I said to the kids, my class, do you want to, talk about that? Or do you want to do some language arts? And they all went, let's do language arts, and they're like, oh, let's read something, let's write something, which is not what they might always have said at the end of the day. But
Mm-hmm.
they really understood that, just like we do with writing, it can take you away from,
Mm-hmm.
those troubling things sometimes and give you some, I guess, some positive relief in your life. So I'm not that surprised that they didn't mention COVID.
Well, and I think
So
for them, it's not where they're from yet. It's where they
yeah,
are.
it's where
It's
they are. Oh, that's a good point. That's a
the
good
present
point.
moment. Like it's still very, and I think particularly living in California, it's very present still. We
Yes.
are more talking about it and thinking about masks than maybe some other places. So it was definitely, people
Yeah.
were still masked at that time and required to be masked. And
Yeah, because I've moved to Oregon and I'm now in Portland and people wear masks, but it's really an interesting thing that it does not, the pandemic does not feel as heavy here
mm,
as it did in the Bay Area when I was
mhm.
living. And I mean, and I think it's a matter of numbers. the Bay Area is so much bigger than Portland. Portland's a little town compared to, being in the Bay Area.
Don't tell
So
them that.
I know.
Yes.
Yeah,
Speak
I'm gonna
quietly.
hear,
Um,
I know. I'm gonna get in trouble for this. I'm gonna get in trouble. Well, my niece who grew up in Portland now lives in Seattle. She's 23, and she has said the same thing. She said she notices a difference between how it feels in Seattle than in Portland. So, hey, Portland's a different place. So, but
it is.
yeah,
And the states have their own flavor. I was just on a podcast with a Brit, and I said, I think it's a little difficult for people outside of this country to fully understand how different the states really are. I think it may seem like an artificial demarcation, which it is to some extent, but
mm,
the states are different. They do have
they're
different
so
policies
different.
and
Yeah.
different ways of being, and it's very different hearing. I mean, it's devastating, obviously, what's happening with Roe v. Wade, but I feel very differently living here than I might if I was living in another state.
Absolutely. Well, if, as you heard from my poem, I was born in Texas. In fact,
Hmm.
that picture, that photograph that
Hmm.
you posted of
We
me and
kind of
my,
do look like siblings.
oh my
Someone
God, I
said
thought of
that.
that. Oh my God, I hadn't thought about it until I saw somebody's comment. And I went back
Yeah.
and I went, huh? Oh yeah, it was the little
When I put
girl.
the pictures next to each other, I was like, wow, this is, and I
That's
have
so
actually a
funny.
picture, Lisa, of myself wearing, it's a longer, but a blue dress,
Okay.
on a lawn. And I was like, if I
Oh, that's
had that
funny.
picture, we would really look like doppelgangers.
Oh my God, that is so funny. Well,
It was
that was,
Meg. She just said
yeah.
it was her, and she's
Oh,
here.
okay.
Yes,
Okay.
Meg.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that was taken in Texas, where I was born, and
Hmm.
I have not lived in Texas for a long time. And you're right, it's a very different place, and
Hmm.
it's a place I don't feel I can go back to.
I know, which is
Sorry,
very
yeah,
sad. I'm friends with
yeah,
a lot of Texans, obviously, because my husband is Texan. We've been together a long time, and who are out here, and there's grief associated with it for them. They grew up with
yeah,
Ann Richards and
yeah,
this and LBJ and this like tradition of
yeah,
these like liberal Democrats, and so there's a lot of grief
yeah.
of their home.
Where in Texas is your husband from?
He was born in Paris, but grew up outside Corpus, and then went to middle school and high
Okay.
school in San Antonio, and then he went to UT.
Okay, okay. I was born in the northeast part of Texas called the Piney Woods.
Uh huh.
Anyway, so yeah.
My husband's father's family is like from Wichita Falls, and like
Okay.
um,
Yeah.
up in a
Yeah.
different. They're very Texan,
Yeah.
like they've lived all the places, and it's interesting because my mom is from Wisconsin, and there's been a similar shift there where she grew
Yeah,
up in a
it's
very
true.
liberal. She went to Madison, and that was a bastion of liberal thought, and
Yeah,
now
things
Wisconsin has really shifted, and I know that
yeah.
for
Yeah,
her
it's
it's like, wait, what?
what
It's,
happened. Yeah, what happened. And
yeah.
it's an interesting thing to ponder. Yeah, and like you say, every state is really different. And it's interesting. I lived in California. I moved there when I was 23, and I lived there over 40 years. And then I just, decided, well, I knew I was going to move up here. I knew that I was going to move to Oregon. Um, but I still, California. I lived in California most of my life, and so I have trouble. I haven't quite, shouldn't say that either. Made the
I
shift
know, and
yet.
I know how they feel about us up there. That's how they
Oh
feel about us
yes,
everywhere,
I
including
know.
Austin, which is a great city, Meg. But everywhere it's like, oh, stop the
Oh,
Californians, stop
California.
the Californians. And I always want to say, they aren't all Californians, right? A lot of them
Yeah,
came from somewhere else, lived here for a few years, and left. And
yeah,
they,
yeah.
like a lot of us, I was actually having this conversation earlier. I find people from Los Angeles to be lovely people. But people who have recently transplanted to Los Angeles, maybe not as much. Like
Okay,
it's not
interesting.
necessarily the people who are from here that give the city a bad rap. I think they're
Oh,
lovely. I like it
okay.
here. you know?
Yeah, yeah.
But
Now, see, I have that because I lived in the Bay Area. I have
I
that
know we have a thing.
NorCal.
Yeah,
We have a thing.
we have a thing.
We we have a thing. Yeah. Well, it's interesting because Portland people are very nice. Very nice
Mm.
people here and friendly. Um, but I do every time I tell people I'm from California, I say, yeah, but my family lives here. I moved up here to be with my family,
You gotta
even though
qualify it.
even though my family moved from Illinois to
Hmm.
Oregon. So, everybody
Hmm.
pretty much moved to Oregon. It's just we're following the Oregon Trail here. So anyway, and that's just, that's something. It's real interesting to think about. Like you moved all over. You're not from California, right?
I did live here till I was 14, so
Ah,
I
okay.
am a nat. I no, you can't use the word native anymore. I was born here.
You were born. Oh,
Yes,
yes, of course. We can't say that anymore,
that's
right?
not. I
Yeah.
mean, it's not true. So I'm happy
Yeah.
to not say it, but it is
Yeah.
something that we used to say in order to tell
Yes.
other people that we'd been here longer, which is fairly
Yeah.
comical, but nevertheless we did it.
Yeah,
Um,
well, we were dumb. We were uninformed.
yeah, we really were.
Sorry, I apologize. Yeah,
Yeah,
oh wow, yeah, I can't say that. Okay, so I was
yeah,
born in Texas,
yeah.
but yeah, it's a interesting thing, how because Americans, so many of us traveled all
Yes,
over and and
yes.
and we are very mobile people, and
Hmm.
so
And for the most part, many of us are new to these. I mean, that's the thing that's so funny is these kind of like flexes, like, oh, my family's been here. Like none of us are indigenous. Like,
no,
you know, we're all, many of us, all us white folks, we've immigrated and,
yes,
and Asian and Latinx and
yeah.
forcefully enslaved. So it's a funny, I do wonder if they do that in other countries as much. I've
You
been
know,
in
it's
this neighborhood for this long.
I know, it's an interesting thing because I do know people who in the United States who also like I have family who've, live within like 10 miles of where they were born.
Hmm.
So there are people who do that.
Hmm.
It's just that for so many of us, we just don't have that kind of I don't know. I can't think of the word. We don't have that kind of, loyalty to a place.
Oh, Rosanna says they do it. So they do it in Italy too, Rosanna. Good. We have someone we have
Oh,
someone who
okay.
can tell
Oh,
us.
Rosanna.
Yes.
Okay, it's
Yeah.
Rosanna. Oh, yay,
Yeah.
Rosanna. Good. Yeah, and she's in isn't she in Minnesota?
Uh-huh. She
So,
is.
yeah. Yeah. So I guess maybe it's just the human condition,
Hmm.
we're always looking for something new or not necessarily new, but better, where we need to
Yeah.
be. And I always wonder, like when I hear somebody like Rosanna, how she wound up in Minnesota, like, wow, that's an interesting place to think about.
Yeah.
So, but
We're mobile, and it's funny too that yeah we do have this sort of human instinct to prove that we belong. I think that's
yes.
probably where it comes from. Like, I
Well,
belong here. I
yeah.
belong here more than you or whatever.
Oh,
That's
and
when it
that's
starts
true.
to get
Yeah.
ugly. But it
Instead
comes
of,
from this place of
yeah,
wanting.
but we all belong
We
and
do.
that's, yeah, it's a very interesting thing to do. Yeah, a lot of what as a kid, I hated that I moved all over the place,
Hmm.
but as an adult, I just have kept it up. So,
Isn't
like, oh
that
well.
funny?
I
Hmm.
know, isn't it? But I hated it. And I've written so much about being a child who was, as a child being so unhappy to move all the time. And now I just kept doing it in my adult life. And I haven't I haven't written about that, that dichotomy, like what's different now that would cause me to still do this. So it's an interesting idea.
Yes, something to write about.
There we go. Yeah.
I mean, that's what's good about these conversations. Lots of times I begin to think of an idea like you just did. It's like, oh, this is useful for further exploration.
Yeah. Yeah. What is it that, yeah, that's a good thing. Yeah.
Mhm.
Maybe my next book.
Right.
I
Well,
gotta
any
finish
other
the one.
thoughts before we close?
I think this is so wonderful that you're doing this and how wonderful to have poetry being highlighted in this country, which, although during COVID, I think poetry got a little boost. People realized that poetry is important. So
I agree. And I think
I think,
Amanda Gorman did a ton for poetry at Biden's
oh my
inauguration.
God.
I really do.
Oh my God.
She
Oh
spoke to
my
just a
God.
whole new generation of people. And I mean, she reached my heart for sure. I was
Oh,
really moved.
that was that was a highlight of my
Yeah.
life. I really do. And jealous too. Like, oh my God, how old are you?
I know. I know.
I
She
wish
is
I'd been.
from not very far from here. She actually, I know
Oh, is
people
she?
who know her. And I
Oh,
felt like
wow.
really starstruck, like her mother was involved in the foundation of the school my kids go to. And I was like,
Oh, how
like, it was like
cool.
she's such a celebrity. I mean,
Oh my
what a
gosh.
voice. I'm grateful she's
That's
out there.
wonderful. Yes, yes. Well, I'm grateful that you're doing this.
Aw, thank
So,
you. It has really been, it's so fun to meet people. I know it's on here, but still, like, I see you regularly and it's
yeah,
on Zoom. And it's fun to meet you in this way and to have
yeah.
met all these people. It's really, it's joyful. It's joyful for me.
It's wonderful. I appreciate that you're doing it, and I'm really happy I got to be a part of it.
Well, thank you for joining me, Lisa. And I'm sure I'll see
Yes.
you again soon on Zoom.
Oh yeah, we'll be on Zoom together again. We always are.
Okay. Thank you,
All
Meg,
right.
for these compliments. She's like saying lots of very kind things as we're trying to close, and it's really
Oh,
sweet.
great.
So thank
Oh,
you,
thank
Meg, and
you.
thanks for a lot of people said how beautiful your poem was, Lisa, and it was. And thank
Oh,
you
thank
for
you.
coming and sharing yourself and your poem with me. I
Oh,
really
thank you.
appreciate it.
All right. Thanks,
Okay.
everybody.